I watched everything. And this was a very cool way also to watch the set that's so much different than being a PA. Because as a PA, if you're on a film, a lot of the time you're doing lockups and things, which can be outside of the action, outside of what's going on. But as a background actor, I was able to be there and watch the director direct and watch the camera department move through the scene and watch art department work with props. Like, I was able to actually be in the action and see all this stuff up close, which was an incredible experience. And I also made sure that I was very fun and networky and friendly to all of the PAs who were helping background. I was started off, I knew I would do a couple days, so I started off just kind of being friendly to them and whatever, talking with them when they were not super busy. And eventually I told the background PA, I was like, hey, I actually like normally PA, and that's what I'd like to do. Is there any way, like, do you know how I might be able to get on the show or do something like that? And he was like, oh yeah, like we exchanged phone numbers, and he was like, I'll try and do what I can. I'm just a PA, so I might not have that power. But I also worked one of the second ADs was working with the background, of course, and she was placing us and kind of telling us what to do, and she was really cool, and I really liked her. I was like, that is who I want to be. She was so cool. And so my last day, at least for a little while as a background, I went up to her after we had finished a scene, and she was kind of like chill and just chatty for a moment. I went up to her and I was like, I know you're really busy, but I just want to let you know that, like, you're so cool. And basically I was like, it was really cool seeing you work, and I've learned a lot from watching you work. And I normally work as a PA, so, you know, if you ever need more people or if you're looking for more people. And she was like, oh, like, of course. And she, like, knew my name. Like, I had been talking to her and been friendly with her. And she was like, you know what, here's the phone number of someone who's doing our hiring. Reach out to them, and I'll let them know that, like, I would love to have you on a day or two. And it worked. And I was on, and I only ended up, scheduling-wise, able to work 2 days as a PA. But I was able to work a couple days as the PA on the movie. And that was really awesome. So I met the other PAs who also recognized me when I was part of the background, which was kind of funny. And so that was, like, kind of my creative way to get in on being a PA. For the feature film. And so that was the first film that I worked on. And it was the one, I think, for a little while until I did Giving Up the Ghost. And that was, I'm sure Eddie has told you quite a bit about that. You haven't? Oh.
I've let that go. It'll probably come up.
Yeah.
It may have come up a couple.
It'll come up, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So that was the first feature that I did. And then every job that I have, like, network again, get people's phone numbers, and it leads to more work. So I met some other new PAs on that job, and PAs that I had worked with previously who were, like, day player PAs. So, like, I was just coming in for a day or two. And I've worked with lots of those people since. I then, like, this past year really was, like, trying to get into the feature world more. So I paid even more attention to when features were coming to town. I made sure I told people that I wanted to be in the feature film world and just the narrative world in general. So I made sure that, like, my PA connections and my production coordinators and whoever, like, I made sure that they knew that. I worked on Giving Up the Ghost. I did this film that came last summer called Stages, which was like a production company based in Austin, Texas, but they were filming Nashville like it was Memphis. I worked with them for 3 weeks on their feature film. So that was really awesome. I worked as a PA, but mostly as, like, a background PA. So I was in charge of the background and checking them in and everything. So that was really cool. What other feature films
Don't
have I
dare
done?
say
Amy. There was. Oh, I worked on a film in Las Vegas, which was a connection I made through Giving Up the Ghost, actually. I'll get to that one, don't worry. I worked as an associate producer and a second AD in Las Vegas because the producer of Giving Up the Ghost, I really impressed her with my work, and so she literally flew me out to Las Vegas to go work on a film with them, which was really awesome. And then I worked on the new Superman movie that's coming out this year, which was really cool. How I got that, because it did not film anywhere close to here. It filmed in mostly Atlanta, in, like, studio and stuff, but on location filming they did in Cleveland, Ohio. And I had a friend at the beginning of last year who was actually a student here, he was very much into like Superman and trying to get on this film. And he saw somewhere that they'd be filming in Cleveland, Ohio. So he reached out to the Cleveland Film Commission and sent out his resume because he heard that they were hiring. And he was like, hey, I really want to work on this film, blah, blah, here's my resume. So he applied. He did not hear anything for months. He told me when he applied, and I was like, oh, that's super cool. I was like, that would be awesome to work on something like that. Like, I actually am from Ohio. I have friends in Cleveland. And he remembered that I said that because a few months later, someone, the key PA, reached out to him and was like, hey, we're hiring. We're looking for production assistants for our Cleveland unit. And we're only hiring people who can work as a local, which basically means that you can provide an address for that location. You're not getting paid per diem. You're not getting paid mileage for, traveling up there. They're not, paying for any kind of housing. And he did not know anyone in Cleveland. He was not able to provide housing for himself, but he remembered that I had said that I had friends in Cleveland. And so he reached out to me and he was like, hey, can I stay with your friends in Cleveland? And my honest answer was, you probably would only be able to stay there if I was also there because they don't know you. So he reached back out to the key PA and he was like, I can work as a local, but the person who can provide that housing for me is also a production assistant, so we would be traveling together, and that's how I'd be able to work as a local. So can she also get a job? And basically, he got me this job as a PA. So we stayed with my friends in Cleveland, and I got to PA for the new Superman movie, which was really, really awesome. I got to see James Gunn direct, and I got to hear him direct, which was really, really cool. I worked as a general set PA, but there were days where I filled in for background, so I worked with background. There were days that I was assigned to the stunt team, so I was helping stunts, which was also very cool. As you're on a feature set, like I said, a lot of it's lockups. The first day I worked, they didn't know me. They had no idea who I was. I was assigned a lockup. We were filming in this, the town center, basically, and we had to lock up multiple blocks around this center, right? So I was a couple blocks down the street locking up. So I was very far away. I didn't really see anything much unless I was walking to Crafty or to use the restroom or something like that. But I was like, I will accept this lockup. I will be the best PA that has ever locked up a street corner. I had a great attitude every time my key PA checked in with me and asked how I was doing. I was like, I'm doing great. I had a good attitude. I did my job. I did not leave my lockup. There were some people on that set who would leave their lockups for a better job. That did not serve them well because they got demoted in some way. But I worked really, really hard, and my key PA noticed that, and so he gave me roles with more responsibility, like getting to work with background. There was one day he placed me specifically next to James' trailer so I could invite him to set when he was ready and keep eyes on him. And so it ended up being a really awesome experience, and that was really cool. So, and I've been working on more features, and I just got asked actually by the same producer Marissa from Giving Up the Ghost to do another feature in Las Vegas this summer, literally this morning. So I'll be able to do that. Yeah.
Joey?
Yeah.
So I want to give you guys a chance to ask some questions too before we kind of.
I know that was a lot. I'm sorry.
Give us a lot of time.
Yes.
Were there any moments when you were doing a PA that you wanted to just give up?
Honestly, as a PA, no. There are definitely moments where I've been very fortunate also, I will say, to work with a lot of really awesome people, and I've always been treated well, but I know that that's not true for everyone, and I know that you will meet people who don't treat you well. As a PA, they're definitely having to do, for the Nicole Kidman movie, I did a lockup outside of studio door, outside of the building where they were doing construction. So my job was basically to let the construction workers know that, and not construction workers, but they were building set pieces. I had to basically let them know when we were rolling and that they would have to be quiet or if they could hear them in the studio and whatnot. It was not a fun job. I did 12 hours of that, and I was like, that was where I had a moment. This was my first narrative feature film experience. And I was like, this might not be exactly what I thought that it was going to be. Working on lockups is not that cool. But it was just that was my first experience with that. I didn't want to quit. I knew I was I'm going to keep doing this if I have to do this to get some better role. But there's definitely stuff or tasks that you'll be asked that you're like, I'm like, just as a person, I'm worth more than this. But you have to work through it to get to a better place.
Putting up crafty tents is never fun, but
No, just putting up tents is terrible, especially when they're broken.
Yeah.
There was one time I was working. I did like a little. We called it a documentary. It was reality for a Real Housewife. It was some dramatic reality like package that they were shooting here, and I was a PA for a couple days for them. And this Real Housewife of Orange County or whatever, she was the star of it. And we were in a hotel lobby waiting for our room to be ready that we were going to film at upstairs. And there was like a coffee shop in the lobby. And I'm sitting there with, the housewife and the rest of our crew. It was a very small crew. Like we just had, sound guy, 2 camera guys, whatever, producer. And I was the only PA. And she's like wandering around this coffee shop and she like picks up a bar. She doesn't pay for it. She opens it up and she takes a bite. And then she walks over to me. And then as she's walking over to me, the producer comes over and is like, our room's ready upstairs. And she's like, oh, great. And she hands me this bar that she just took a bite out of. And she was like, I didn't pay for this and I didn't like it. Can you go take care of it? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. I was like, this felt very demeaning. But I awkwardly had to go up to the counter and be like, my colleague didn't like this and she didn't pay for it. But can I pay for this for her or whatever? And I ended up using a card or something. Like I didn't have to pay for it with my own money, but it was very much like, it was the weirdest thing I think anyone has asked me to do. But sometimes you just say yes and you just do it. And that's it. I had to blow up like 16 jingle bells, like huge jingle bells in my car once. And that took like 3 hours.
That's okay.
I was helping Art.
Somehow in my car is the part that
Yeah.
really got me. What else, guys?
Jackson, you said that you worked on some sort of set.
Yeah, so this weekend I actually got to work on there's a documentary. It's like a documentary and a feature at the same time. The documentary is called 100 Pages, where they got 100 writers across the U.S. to each write 1 page of a screenplay. So the entire 100 pages of the screenplay, each page is written by a different person. And I, crazy circumstance, met this guy in New York who happened to be from Middle Tennessee, and he's the director of. He's making a documentary documenting what it was like to create 100 pages. So I met him in New York. We had the same flight home, met for coffee. This past weekend, they shot a proof of concept to pull investors for the feature that was written for the 100 pages. It's a very convoluted way to explain it, but I got to be a part of that, and that was amazing. Non-union. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Christian Del Grusso, I think is his name. He used to be a very popular Vine star. He was the director.
I missed that.
He was the director of got to make contact with him, and I'll be getting coffee with him in a few weeks to talk about being on the feature that they're shooting this summer. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, it was great. It was a great experience. I was the only PA that had set experience, so I was able to be kind of selfish and like take all the work and make face contact with all the departments. The last day that I shot, I was working with basically every department all at the same time. So yeah, just say yes to anything that gets asked of you.
And any department, like if someone asks you to be an art PA and you've never done art before, but still say yes. I mean, any time you're a PA, like they'll tell you what you need to be doing.
I was with the art department, pulling chairs and bringing them upstairs to this house, while also walking downstairs and getting told I had to go shuttle somebody to come back to go back to the art department to then help the grip department with this over here. Yeah, I was just doing everything in between, and it was so much fun. I had a great time. I also got to act. They needed a background actor on one of the scenes. Does anyone know the movie A Walk to Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The lead, Shane West. I got to act with him. That was pretty cool.
Nice.
That's so common also for like these
PAs. To
like
get
for
pulled into
PAs to get pulled in to be background
I
or
didn't.
something.
I wasn't anything crazy.
That's happened so many times.
I didn't have any lines. I'm in one
supposed
shot
to-
out of focus. So.
We went on this Christmas movie. We changed some things in the schedule, and our background actors weren't like. We ended up shooting a scene earlier than we thought we would that needed background actors, and our background actors were going to be elves. And so we pulled the only 2 PAs that we had and turned them into elves. And it was really funny because I had been working with them for 10 days and learned their personalities, and seeing them as like happy, jolly little elves was really funny.
Somewhere I have a shot of Scotty Bright, who you may maybe remember Scott. I have Scotty, who nice bearded young man dressed up as a nun.
Love that.
Something he was working on. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
This has nothing to do with anything, but it's just me and Brighton. In all of our films, try to insert ourselves into it.
Oh yeah.
Just as a little like, haha, that's funny. Those are the directors.
Mm-hmm.
So be looking out for that in March. Come Cosmo.
I managed to
We're in
stay
it.
out of camera, off camera, away from camera, in all but one circumstance.
Oh.
This is a slightly long story. I'll make it. We were shooting a movie called Dracula's Widow. If you guys want, boy, can we talk. I have stories about Dracula's Widow, starring Sylvia Christel, who was very famous in the 1970s as the softcore porn star Emmanuel. We were shooting in this beautiful, gorgeous old sort of warehouse setting, 3 or 4, 5 stories high, with these, made 100 years old, made out of these giant timbers that were like this, rough-hewn timbers that were this big, all constructed. And what it was in the day, it had been a fertilizer depot. In fact, you could look up. We were kind of on a hill going down to the river. You could look up and you could see where there were train tracks, where the trains would come in at ground level and dump the fertilizer into this place, right? Now, it had been disused for years, but there was still a lot of fertilizer just kind of caked up against all the walls. So I walked in the first day as the second AD and wearing a mask. And the first AD goes, "Why is this thing? Look at this place." I goes, "You'll make everybody nervous. Don't do this." I said, "Okay," so I took it off. About halfway through the first night, suddenly there's sparks everywhere and all the lights go out. Because the fertilizer has eaten through the electrical junction box. A couple hours later, the sound card falls over because the fertilizer has eaten through the connections of the wheels and it's tipping over. You go outside to the honey wagon, which has metal steps, and there are rusted footprints of people who've been walking in. Now, at that point, everybody's wearing masks. And our lead actor, the scene was an ambulance pulls in, and our lead actor is on a gurney in the back of the ambulance. He's pulled out of the ambulance and turned over onto the floor. You okay?
I'm okay.
Don't worry about
Do
you.
you need another?
No, I'm fine.
And
It's
the
only
actor
beeping
wouldn't
because
do
I stopped
he,
it.
He wouldn't do it. So the first AD came up to me and said, "You got to do this. You're the size as he is. We're going to dye your hair black. We're going to part it on the wrong side. We're going to put you in this jumpsuit." So there's a scene in Dracula's Widow, which next week I will show you. Of me being pulled out of and dumped off on a gurney, and then the actor rolling forward. The nice thing about it though was I got stunt pay.
Oh.
Oh.
Nice.
That was more, I think, than I was making a day on that shoot, just to get rolled off.
That's crazy.
And I somehow have managed to live to the ripe old age of 98 or whatever. So it was okay. That was the only
That's
time
beautiful.
I was ever on camera.
I'm gonna look for that.
I got up the next morning, I'd forgotten about everything. I got in the shower, or the next afternoon or whatever it was. I got in the shower, and all this black stuff started rolling off of me, and I thought, I'm dead.
From your hair, from the
Yeah,
fertilizer.
from the dye. Yeah, the dye.
How did that? Did anyone anyone touch the fertilizer? That sounds extremely dangerous.
It probably was. But you know, and you know, when we talk about safety, I thought it's hard to say no.
It is hard to say no.
And it was about a couple of days. I mean, I think. Look, it's probably no worse rolling on the ground than it was standing there for 15
True,
hours.
true.
3 days in a row, so.
That's crazy.
Any other questions for these guys? We'll call it a day. It's been thank you for all the time you gave us.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
An alligator
That's a wrap.
True.
I don't know about these two, but I might say we can stay for like a few minutes after if anybody doesn't want to
Absolutely not.
share their question to the whole class. You can come talk to me.